We're back. That was loss for the Ronin in a setup I didn't quite understand. Lachesis, 3 curses.
A Dominix. I think if you're going to bring a Dominix at any point in time in this tournament, you might want to rethink that after the teams that have brought one today.
Yeah. I mean, it's a team that could still qualify. It wasn't a comedy setup. It was unironically a setup.
It looked like an anti-rush team to me with those curses in there. To put a lot of stopping power, they were kind of missing some webs, though, so I'm not exactly sure what they were thinking. I think it was Myrmidons that they had there as their damage dealers as well.
That's what I meant. And what I meant earlier
just
when I
like
said...
Michael Bolton meant thoraxes when he said trashers as the epic victory over Bob. But,
and also, what I meant when I said that they were a shoo-in before was not that there's no way that they couldn't be in the tournament. It's that I had such absolute faith that they would have a dominating victory. And of course, as you see, occasionally I get something right.
Absolutely. Well, you got this one right, that's for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. You would have thought that Ronin would come in all guns blazing with their absolute best setup possible. But it just did nothing whatsoever against that fairly standard Minotaur Rush team.
Yeah, and they didn't even need to show up with their best setup. They needed to show up with a setup that could take a few ships down. Because they're at 177 points. If they win this one and just do like a few more points at least, they effectively shut out Aggravated Assault, and they can just hope that Power of 2 doesn't get a lot of... I mean, they just need to harvest points, basically, because it is a pretty even match.
Then again, Aggravated Assault hasn't done particularly well, and
that's a fair point.
I doubt they'll do particularly well against Power of 2 either, so they kind of threw this one in. I mean, they should have gone in with their best setup.
Fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. So, yeah, Power of 2, the marketing favored, because it's basically the same name as one of our offers. One of the things that's been going on the forums right now is that we've been talking about this idea that is, of course, not set in stone, but we've been talking about making ice only mineable in 0.0. Some of the reactions are, if we're making these unique 0.0 resources, shouldn't low-sec and high-sec have them as well? I mean, we have them in some shapes or forms, but should this be a general rule for all areas or just for 0.0?
Yeah, I mean, low-sec obviously is kind of its own beast that needs its own thing. If we went down this kind of road, then it's probably an approach that we would repeat with low-sec to try and get that nice pattern and a nice kind of distribution of stuff. High-sec as well, we need to, that's another thing we need to kind of thrash out and figure that out exactly how that's going to fit into it. I mean, we've talked about, for example, in industry terms, we want to keep most of the bulk T1 stuff in high-sec because it seems like a natural home for it. And it's just a question of how we balance that. Obviously, if we want to deal with this trip moving issue, we've got to do something about trit and null-sec. There's various things we can do there, but that's another thing that's going to factor into this. Whether we make it easy to get trit out there, or whether we find ways of especially if we want to focus on Tech 2 stuff in null-sec, whether we can find ways of skipping the trit step in that, I don't know. It's one of the thorny issues, and it's one of the things that is going to be one of the hardest problems to solve, I think, for this kind of industry and resource area of focus in the next, however long we spend looking at it. We do have, obviously, the interests of high-sec industrialists and high-sec miners and so on in mind, and that's kind of one of my big unresolved headaches is how we balance not wanting to have 30 freighters worth of trit heading out to null-sec every week per alliance or whatever it is, versus not just telling everyone in high-sec, hi, you've got nothing left now. So that's a thorny design headache that we've not finished yet and we've not resolved, and that's why we're saying these things are not set in stone and we need to think about this more. We need to do more design due diligence and all this kind of stuff. These are early ideas and there's a lot of problems that need tidying up still.
High-sec does have one thing that a lot of players like to do, and even that is mission running. Now, there is mission running out, not in high-sec, but the vast majority of missions that are run are in high-sec. People who live in 0.0, the standard grunt, what they do instead of running missions is typically they'll run anomalies. Recently, anomalies have been adjusted downward.
Yes.
A lot of 0.0 people took great issue with that. What was the basis for doing that?
Do you want to do this? Sure. When we did Dominion, we had a big discussion about whether we wanted to make the upgrades flat or whether we wanted to make them scale by sec status. And that went back and forth a long time. Eventually, we decided to go the flat route. and we've been looking at it since, and we just feel that it's flattened nullsec too much. There's not enough reason to move around, especially at the grunt level, or the regions are kind of being a lot more equally valued, and particularly in terms of we wanted to free up regions like Providence and Pure Blind and so on, because they could be areas that like first-time nullsec people can move out to. They want to go to somewhere like Syndicate, or they can go to somewhere like Pure Blind, or they can move down to Providence and have some space that's not that fiercely contested. And we used to have that in the old days with people like CVA, who obviously were fixture, but they were kind of like a step in, I think, for a lot of groups. And that kind of went away, and we had Lance saying, well, Providence is now as good as Delve. I mean, that's not true. There's still differentiation there, but it was a much flatter thing, and it was, I think, shutting the door on a lot of people, and that really we didn't like. So,
Also, balance is boring. Balance is exceptionally terrible in any game. That's just going to come out and say it. And it's just like, instead of having these big concentrations of people, you have like these 2-3 people per system that are running these anomalies, and there's no coherence, and there's no like centers of players, which we see now. But I mean, one thing that might be interesting is, so now that we've kind of created these clusters of very habitated systems and just systems that there aren't really a lot of people in, maybe we can do something for the systems with a lot of players in. So instead of balancing it out like all systems are good, we could make the good systems even better, so we can fit more people in there. It would be interesting to put more havens and sanctums into systems that are 0.5 to 1.0 on the minus scale, of course, and just simply putting some of the value back, like giving people the same quantity of plexus they had before, just concentrated in those big ones.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I think a lot of the people that are crying about their havens and sanctums disappearing would be happy to see that. One more thing that I wanted to bring up, one of the original things why we were talking, I remember talking about this back when I was a CSM delegate, but we were talking about the ability to upgrade your space and make some of that more empty space worth living, to get people out there. But it seems to me that there's been a lot of alliances who used to live out in 0-0 who've now chosen to just not hold SOV anymore at all, and have done quite well, such as this gentleman right here, his alliance. Do you think we're at a state where owning SOV just might not have enough benefits?
Yes. It's drifted a bit too far in that direction. I think part of the issue is Moon, the value of tech again, which is something that needs a kick in the balls. But yeah, it's the soft system that it is not great. We have various concerns with it. Another thing is like, if I'm deviating off from the question here, my brain is just kind of spinning.
Some sort of motivation for people to actually place the flag.
But that's what you want.
Yeah. No, we want more of that, and we want also to like take another step forward with the upgrades thing. But I would like to put more focus, or we would like to put more focus on like we were talking about the grunts, the people who aren't alliance leaders. We've had a lot of upgrades and stop tools and stuff in general, which is a director presses a button, and now their system is suddenly magically better. And we spent like a lot of time thinking about things in that kind of high level alliance leadership level, and we'd like to kind of put more focus back down on the multitudes of players who are living in nullsec, and not just the few guys at the top, and trying to get the interests of the leadership and the lower levels kind of aligned more.
All right, let's go to the next match. Let us go to Aggravated Assault versus Power of Two. This is very likely for another slot in tomorrow's finals. What say you, Sastro?
Aggravated Assault, ... I like you guys, but unfortunately you haven't been doing so well today. I'm going to go with Power of Two.
I think we're going to see a decisive victory from Power of Two.
Yeah, I hate agreeing with everybody, but the stats look pretty straightforward. It's not looking good for Aggravated Assault, yeah.
Sorry, Aggravated Assault, you're probably going to lose.